Ladies and gentlemen, there has been a lot of intrigue surrounding Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar's resignation, a shock resignation which came last night. We'll discuss that. We'll get you the inside details. NDTV has got the details of what led to this, stealth resignation, which has sent shockwaves in the political circles. Though the Vice President said health, but what is the real reason behind this? We have some very important information on that. After that, we'll also, at 6:30, talk about these four men, the butchers of Pahalgam, 3 months on. Where are they? That's the big question that we would be asking this evening, ladies and gentlemen, on the broadcast. Let's start with our top story at this moment with some very important details which are coming in. The inside track, the inside details, exclusive information on former Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar's resignation. This is the shock resignation which has sent political circles abuzz. And now NDTV is in fact getting you the details, whether the government was upset with the Vice President, the inside details of what led to the resignation of the Vice President. It seems that an opposition-sponsored move to remove a judge after a massive cash recovery from his residence, Yashwant, Varma, set the chain of motions, of events in motion that eventually led to Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar's shock resignation. Let me get you details as far as this breaking news is concerned. The judge's impeachment, Yashwant Varma's impeachment, is the trigger. Jagdeep Dhankhar announced opposition's motion to remove the judge. That is what we are learning from our sources. The former Vice President, did not inform the government about the motion which was tabled by the opposition MPs in the Rajya Sabha and was accepted by him. NDA MPs would also have signed if the Vice President would have informed, is what the government sources are telling us. The government had planned for a motion on the judge in the Lok Sabha, and before that motion could be brought in, the Vice President accepted the motion, the former Vice President accepted the motion of the opposition MPs in the Rajya Sabha. This turned the tables, or at least soured the relationship as far as the government and the Vice President is concerned. After the Vice President's move, top ministers met the Prime Minister. Ministers then met BJP MPs and allies. The government had prepared the motion on the judge, got the MP signatures as well, and then before they could move that motion in the Lok Sabha, there was this move of the former Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar to accept the resignation of the opposition MPs. The government then spoke to Vice President, expressed their displeasure. At this juncture is when Jagdeep Dhankhar decided to quit. The MPs briefed on the occasions when Jagdeep Dhankhar embarrassed the government, earlier as well. So it all set a chain of events which led to this shock resignation of the Vice President. Many called him the outspoken Vice President. The former Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar then resigned. My colleague Maria Shakil is with us at this moment. Maria, like we've been saying, these are very important details which are coming in since yesterday. Massive speculation about the reason behind this resignation. Now, NDTV, you are breaking this very important information about what happened, how the relationship and the chain of events which led to his resignation.
Yes, so the relationship started going south perhaps for the last few days as well. But an important point, just 40 minutes before the resignation, which went public at 9:30 p.m., Ankit, there was an information which was shared by the Vice President's office, who also was the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And I'm going to read that part of the information, and then we can perhaps piece together as to why the government was upset. The Vice President, one would say, was trying to do some kind of course correction, and that's the reason why his office sent this information. What the office told us was that coming to a motion that has been presented in both the houses on the same day, then no committee shall be constituted unless the motion has been admitted in both the houses, and where such motion has been admitted in both the houses, the committee shall be constituted only if the chairman of the Rajya Sabha and the Speaker of the Lok Sabha jointly decide. This is an important piece of information which was shared just 40 minutes before that resignation went public shared by the Vice President's official handle. But looking at the sequence of events, remember the government wanted to take the lead on the impeachment of Justice Yashwant Varma. It has been always saying so. Multiple sources in the government has been saying that yes, they believe in the separation of power between the legislature, between the executive and the judiciary, but they also were of the opinion that this, the stash of cash which was recovered from Justice Yashwant Varma's home, allegedly recovered, certainly shows the dark side, the dark underbelly of the judiciary, and hence the impeachment motion was very close to them, and hence they wanted to take the lead. What happened yesterday certainly was that without taking the government on board, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha then, that is Jagdeep Dhankhar, went ahead and accepted the motion which was moved by the opposition MPs. Of course, the Treasury benches MPs were not informed about it, and hence the relationship started getting that tension which was certainly that the government was not prepared for. At the same time, remember, in a committee of this nature which has to be constituted, because for any impeachment motion to be moved and finally see the light of the day, it has to be a constituted committee. And the government wanted to ensure that this motion is brought in the Lok Sabha and followed by a motion in the Rajya Sabha, and hence the chairman of the Rajya Sabha and the speaker of the Lok Sabha will jointly constitute a committee. That did not happen.
Maria, very quickly before I let you go, because this followed a series of meetings which the former Vice President now had, with the opposition MPs, the BJD, the Aam Aadmi Party, and many others in the last week or 10 days. Was there a sense of mistrust which in fact came to a boil when he admitted this motion of the opposition MPs?
I would not rule that out at the moment, certainly, Ankit. Vice President Dhankhar was also very, very controversial. Remember, this is the same opposition which had brought in an impeachment motion against Vice President Dhankhar in the month of December in 2024, just 6 months ago. So what really changed from December to the month of July that we are in? So the same distrust that he had with the opposition, where the opposition had gone to the extent of saying that the chair is partisan, and that it is not really living up to the stature of the chair, and he had been also accused of being the mouthpiece of the government, and then it all went south. The relationship changed so much that from that distrust which was there between the opposition and Mr. Dhankhar, it became the distrust between the Treasury benches and Mr. Dhankhar.
And how life changes. 6 months are a long time in politics. Today, the same MPs of the opposition are singing paeans about Jagdeep Dhankhar, who were, and 6 months back were accusing him of being partisan. This is how politics changes so quickly in this country. Maria Shakil, thank you so much for all those important information that is coming in here on NDTV at this moment. Let me very quickly turn my focus at this moment to Priyanka Chaturvedi, Member of Parliament, Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray, Rajya Sabha MP, who is joining us at this moment. I'll also in a short while go across to seasoned journalists, those who have covered the Parliament for a very, very long time. Smita Prakash is joining us as well, and so is Aarti Jairat. Ladies, just request a little patience. Let me just very quickly go across to Mr. Priyanka Chaturvedi. Ma'am, thank you for speaking to us. Let me ask you first, this has taken a lot of intrigue behind this. We are trying to decode what happened. It seems that the impeachment motion of the opposition MPs was the final trigger in a set of events that eventually led to his resignation. How is the opposition viewing that? Because Mr. Dhankhar, till 6 months back, was the mouthpiece of the government, which the opposition said that was partisan.
Absolutely, he was partisan, and we have no qualms to admit it. I will continue to say it. He was. And I was one of the signatories to that no confidence motion. So yes, when I speak from a position of my party which felt that voices were being silenced, opposition voices were being silenced, and we also had the Vice President, who was also the chair, and speak in the most humiliating manner to the LOP. You all have witnessed that several number of times with regards to Mallikarjun Kharge ji. and various other opposition members, whether it was from the Samajwadi Party, Jaya Bachchan ji, whether it was me, whether it was any other member of parliament. There are several videos which would show you that there was a very partisan behavior coming from him. And yes, we had moved the no confidence motion. Of course, it did not find support with the BJP at that point in time. And we were all wanting to know that why this sudden change of heart, that BJP has almost forced his hand to resign, because health was definitely not one of the reasons. When in March he was unwell, I remember as soon as he got out of AIIMS, the first thing he did was to join the parliamentary proceedings. And even yesterday, he was absolutely involved in the day-to-day proceedings of the parliament. And if health would have been a source of concern, he would have stepped down before the monsoon session began. However, the problem now is the disruption that it has caused in the running of the parliament, especially the Rajya Sabha, and the kind of confusion that prevails. So I'm hoping that the government would realize its responsibility, that while he has stepped down, we should fill this gap as soon as possible and not play politics over it.
Now, coming to the reason, behind this exit, which many are calling it the Dhankhar exit, at this moment, can I understand from you, like you were saying that, you were also intrigued with the change of the heart. At one point of time, he was steadfast with the government. In the last few days, there have been all these speculations about him. In fact, not speculations, he's put that out on his personal handle as well, meeting opposition leaders, whether it is the BJD or the Aam Aadmi Party or the Congress or many other political parties. Do you feel that, possibly Mr. Dhankhar was on a course correction when it comes to the opposition point of view?
No, absolutely not. His partisanship also led to creating divisiveness within the India alliance. Like I said, my party has no love lost for a chairman who was behaving in such a manner, which disregarded many political parties and which tried to pamper some particular parties. So trying to create divisions and fissures within opposition. So we have over the years, and I say it, because I have been witness to that, many times faced humiliating words coming from him, humiliating remarks coming from him, also sense of being, kind of pointed fingers at. Also at times, if you look at my entire parliamentary, 5-year tenure, and by the way, I complete, today was the day when I took oath to office. So I had been a very active parliamentarian as far as 0 hours was concerned, where I was raising these concerns. However, that also changed over the period of time. And every time there was any discussion, it used to be told to us that please come to the chamber, have a conversation with him, have a cup of tea with him, and then we will resolve this. So there were many instances where we saw this happen. So I don't see any course correction. I just felt that perhaps the opposition and some political parties gave him the longer rope to try and understand what was happening.
Ma'am, the manner in which this resignation has happened and of course the intrigue around it, do you feel that, because there are a lot of people saying that it almost seemed that the vice president office has been undermined. I mean, politics overtook the office of the vice president during his tenure as well, and also in the way he exited the office.
No, I disagree with the point that Vice President's office has been undermined. Yes, while he was on the chair, there was a feeling of going beyond the brief and being more loyal to the king than the loyalty that they expected from you. However, we need to keep in mind that there are some certain red lines you do not cross, some procedures that you do not cross. Yesterday, what came as a shocker to us, and which we feel that finally the Bharatiya Janata Party realized its mistake of having someone who had a past controversial record as the governor to be put on the chair of the vice president, and have learnt their lessons and are course correcting really.
Priyanka Chaturvedi, thank you so much for speaking to us at this moment, presenting the point of view of your party on this very issue. Important one to say at this moment. This is the discussions which are going on in the political circles. Let me very quickly at this moment turn my attention to these two ladies, those who have covered the parliament for a very, very long time, understand the procedures as well. Aarti Jairat and Smita Prakash, thank you so much for being so patient. Let me ask you first, Smita, it came as a shock, but in terms of the parliamentary procedure, the way things have been, happening, a sudden exit. I mean, till yesterday, nobody had an inkling that Jagdeep Dhankhar would resign. It seemed that he's absolutely fine. In fact, his office was putting out fixtures of the vice president in the days to come, and suddenly it happened. What do you make of the manner in which the vice president was for the first time without going in for the election of the president has resigned and it has been accepted so quickly.
Look, it's happened before in the sense that, with Bibi Giri and the others, there has been instances, but that was because they were going to stand for the post of president and those kind of things happened. This came as a bit of a surprise, I think, for all of us. Initially, I just thought it is possibly true that it's because of his health reasons, because he has fainted in one public occasion instance and things like that, and he did look like it was a lot of work that he was doing. But subsequently, it seems that it wasn't as normal as one would have thought, that it's not for health reasons. In your introduction, you were talking about Justice Varma. There, again, a lot of speculation now whether it was Justice Varma's reason or Justice Yadav. Nobody really knows. But the thing with the BJP is that did they not know that Dhankarji was a bit of a loose cannon? It's not surprising. What he did in West Bengal, everybody knew his tenure. The activism was part of his nature. Now that suited the BJP fine when it was in West Bengal. But even when he came here to the center, to the parliament, whether in regard to the farm bills or now with the judicial activism, he was going beyond his brief. It probably made them uncomfortable with it. But, for some of us journalists who met with him and who saw that if he's doing this kind of stuff, it must be acceptable to the BJP. Otherwise, they would ask him to stop doing what he's doing. And even in his interactions, he would go beyond just talk about his work. Usually you expect the vice president to be, talking, to stick within that realm of, his constitutional post. But he was a very garrulous kind of a person, chatty and talking about RSS, about the opposition, very, very forthcoming in his opinions, not typical of vice presidents of the past that we have known.
Yes.
Because vice presidents kind of have a decorous behavior because of his job. But one did see that happening. So, but then you presume that the BJP knows what it's doing. It's made mistakes with Satyapal Malik and got him to move from one governor's post to the next governor's post. But here they just asked for a resignation outright.
So Aarti Jairat, what Smita was saying, and let me pick up from there. So possibly they didn't wanted a Satyapal Malik 2.0 where he was given another opportunity and then it also blew back on the BJP. How do you see what has happened, in the last 24 hours as far as the vice president, the former vice president is concerned? Till very recently, he was seen as sometimes articulating the position which many thought of the government in terms of the, judicial activism and taking on the Supreme Court, which possibly they thought that, the government or the ministers cannot do. Hence, he was being utilized to do that. Suddenly, what happened? He went out of favors.
The entire episode, not just of his resignation, but even the last 3 years of his term, has been quite unfortunate, actually, Ankit. He holds a constitutional post. It is the second highest post in the land. And you may come from a political party. After all, his predecessor, Venkaiah Naidu, was a BJP member, BJP leader, has been a minister in a BJP government. But when he occupied the post of vice president, he may have been a bit partisan, but I think he tried to, be as impartial as possible, which is why you didn't have the kind of run-ins with Venkaiah Naidu as you had with Dhankhar. So, the last 3 years have been a very unfortunate blot on the post of vice president, because of the way Dhankhar has been so outspoken and waded into political controversies, which he shouldn't have been doing because that really is beyond his domain as a constitutional authority. And then the way he resigned, this is what happens to ministers in a government. He's not a minister. He's much more than a minister. He holds a constitutional post. And surely it could have been done in a slightly more respectable, decent manner than the way it has happened. So, I think the fault lies on both sides, both with the government as well as with Mr. Dhankhar, because, somehow they have paid no attention to the propriety of the post and the propriety that the post demands. And this is the sad thing about, what is happening to our institutions that, the institutions
Okay.
are no longer held sacred. And that's really not the way we should be.
Smita, let me bring you in because, now, of course, news coming in, the way, how quickly this resignation was accepted. Many are questioning why the vice president has also not been given an opportunity to, let's say, make a farewell speech or some sort of a, farewell for him as he demits office. Does that show that the relationship between the government and the vice president's office became so acrimonious that they, just want to get done with this chapter, move on?
Yes, absolutely. If there was any doubt that about that, it's the Prime Minister's tweet, Ankit. It's cryptic, but it's also a final goodbye when he talks about his health. If you read between the lines, which I think journalists are tend to do that, the signals are strong that he has violated some major issue. All of us are speculating at this stage because nobody from the BJP has spoken, not even on sources are we getting something concrete. But he's violated something really big. There's some seething anger that you're seeing in that tweet. You remember when Vice President Hamid Ansari's farewell speech happened. There was a farewell speech from the Prime Minister, but here what we are hearing is there's going to be no farewell speeches, nothing. Even Dhankarji is not going to be coming back and giving a farewell speech of his own either. So something very unsavory has happened. And also, Ankit, did you hear carefully what Priyanka Chaturvedi was saying? It 3 times she said in what she was saying to you that he was humiliating. He said humiliating things to her and to others. And she said that they weren't allowed to speak. She doesn't say exactly who. She said Jaya Bachchan, her and another person weren't allowed to speak and he said, come to my chambers and talk to me. Now, they are members of parliament and what they say in parliament should go on the floor of the house. Why come to the chambers and speak? So there is something which is unsavory, which nobody wants to talk about, but something is not kosher out here.
Yeah, there is, we're trying to get, and as journalists, we'll also be intrigued. We'll try and get whatever information we can from the government, from the opposition, and try and put a picture together. Aarti, let me understand from you at this moment. For the opposition, is it good riddance? Is it a political opportunity? The government, I'm sure, the way things have happened, must have also been taken by surprise. Whether this was brewing for some time or it suddenly came to head yesterday, how do you see this playing out politically?
Well, that way I agree with Smita that I think it's been actually coming. Okay. Again, there's no confirmation of anything at the moment. It's all in the realm of speculation, but clearly relations between the vice president and the government had really nosedived. And if you see the events of yesterday, for instance, the fact that he gave Mallikarjun Kharge time to speak uninterrupted on Operation Sindoor. Even opposition members are quite surprised because usually he would butt in and stop them from speaking, but he didn't do that yesterday. So, I get the impression, and then the fact that these ministers absented themselves from the Business Advisory Committee, that was a snub. Clearly, because everybody sat around waiting for them to come. They all had a cup of tea, discussed all kinds of things, but these ministers didn't come.
Yes.
They said they were busy with some parliamentary work elsewhere. But when the vice president calls a business advisory committee, the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and the floor leaders should be present. So, I think that what Dhankhar did was actually try to deliver a counter snub to the government. He has resigned with deliberate intention of embarrassing the government. And to that extent, I think he has succeeded because the government is a bit taken aback, or maybe the government asked him to resign. I don't know whether the government asked him to resign. Yes, they did snub him and all that. But, whether they actually went to as far as to tell him to resign or not, or whether Dhankhar did it in a fit of pique to embarrass the government is, I think we have to really find out. But the fact that, if the government wanted him to go, they should have done it before the monsoon session began.
Absolutely.
And the reason it's become so controversial is because it happened on the opening day of Parliament, when, Dhankar seems perfectly hale and hearty, fit, he's sitting in the chair,
Absolutely.
making
And I think, I
peaceful,
think, I think that is why there have been so much intrigue about it. I mean, it would have happened before the session.
Absolutely.
Possibly, nobody would have been speaking about it when the session had begun.
He
So,
was in Parliament the whole day,
absolutely.
from the morning till the evening when that BAC, that, sort of failed
Okay.
BAC didn't happen. So,
Okay.
Clearly it's not his health.
Okay. In conclusion, Smita Prakash, let me ask you this, because the Prime Minister is off for a foreign visit. He's going to United Kingdom tomorrow. He will not be here. What is the timeline that you are looking at? Because now the interest shifts to who after Jagdeep Dhankhar. Maybe the government must have learned some lessons. Even when he was made the vice president, he doesn't come from the RSS background. All those questions were raised at that point of time as well. What is the timeline that you are looking at? Because the House will function even without the vice president. I mean, there are provisions for that. What are you looking at as far as the timeline for the new vice president is concerned?
Correct. There are provisions. Harivanshji will discharge the duties till so far as a new vice president is appointed. Do we know the timeline when it will happen? If we knew it, then we would have had a date and a number about when the president of the BJP would have been. Even that has not happened so far. There's also UP ka president. There seems to be a slowdown in these decisions. If you remember 5 years back or 8 years back, if you look back at the BJP, everybody used to say that this is a party which has sabki kundli khol dete hain. They have all the details and they have spreadsheets on everybody and they know exactly who to appoint, when to appoint, and it's like a jack in the box. Nobody knew how they came up with the name of Kovindji, how they came up with the name of Murmuji, or the four chief ministers. Nobody really knew how it happened, but it happened because there seemed to be some kind of a method that they worked with. But here, it seems like they have not yet appointed a president because of a lack of consensus. Now, about the vice president, there's no need for a consensus to develop about a president for a vice president's post. But yet, if that resignation had happened before the session of parliament, as Aarti says, it would have been a kind of a controlled explosion.
Okay.
Here, it has exploded on their faces. Who did the explosion? Whether it was Mr. Dhankhar or was it the opposition? Because, supposedly Mr. Dhankhar met with Arvind Kejriwal. Now, why would you meet with Arvind Kejriwal? Because he's not a member of parliament. He doesn't hold a constitutional post. It was a direct, some kind of an attack or some kind of throwing the gauntlet towards the BJP. Which could have been picked up before the session happened. So don't know who's really played that game now.
That's very, very interesting. And I'll have to leave it there. Ladies, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to get your point of view on the burning topics of the country. But like Smita was also saying, BJP is always known to be well prepared. Possibly after a very long time, they are looking at a situation where things have gone, out of hands. Something that they were not prepared for, and we'll have to wait and see how things roll on this very important position as far as the country is concerned. The vice president, who is also the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So what happens now? What are the provisions as far as if a vice president resigns or is unable to act, what happens? So at this moment, what we know is after vice president quits, there are no provision of acting vice president, in the constitution. Now, the deputy chairperson, Harivarsh Narayan Singh, is going to run the house. So there is not going to be any problem as far as the running of the house is concerned in the current session. When will the new vice president be elected? That becomes an important question. No fixed deadlines as per the rules. So you have to elect him, as soon as possible. But there is nothing which dictates a timeline. The rules say that vacancy to be filled as soon as possible. Whether it is going to be before the Bihar elections or it is before the winter session of the parliament, now the ball is in the court of the government of how, in fact, they want to roll this in the days to come. So that becomes a very, very important battle as far as the political circles of this country are concerned in the way things have happened so far.